me, Nesser! Hey, it's me, Nesser. Welcome to Nesser Pod. This is where I dive a little deeper into some of my guests' lives. Sometimes we dive a little too deep, other times we stay on the surface vibing. Either way, come along on this journey. I hope you enjoy this episode.
ZZ Mills, what's happening?
Just Nesser.
Just Nesser. The ZZ Mills of Ireland, you know what I mean?
Nah, do you know, I've actually been looking at a lot of what she's doing, and she's aging with grace. She's looking lang right now. But
Yeah.
I don't think I'm controversial enough to be a ZZ.
No? Why not?
Because I just can't get angry. Like,
You hold back? You feel like you hold back?
it's not that I don't hold back, but how much controversy is there actually in Ireland?
But is it because people are holding back and people are just afraid to talk?
But I also
Bite the
don't
tongue?
care. That's why
True.
we have you here.
True. I'm passionate, you see.
You're passionate
Yeah.
about what?
Everything. The culture, the scene, the people, growth, where we're going, myself, my journey, you know?
Cool, let's start there.
Okay.
Where did the journey start? So for people who
Jeez.
don't know, where you from? Where were you born?
Me, I was born in Zimbabwe. I moved to Ireland when I was like 6.
Okay.
Lived in Drogheda. And then moved
A92.
A92,
Come on.
gang.
You don't even okay, do this line.
Oh, stop. I'm not a gang member.
I'm screaming.
Nah. So that's when kind of my journey started. I was hanging out in Drogheda, a lot of the boys. Went to secondary school in Dunleer, just off of that. Then went to uni in the UK in Cambridge. And from there, I was
Stop
kind
there.
of just like going back and forth to London because that was where the scene was popping.
Yeah.
Uni was boring. It was just full of...
Yeah. So you obviously started off, for people that don't know, you went to college in Cambridge. Well done, congrats, you're smart.
Thank you.
For medicine. So where did that drive come from initially? Like, why did you want to be a doctor?
I feel like I wanted to just always help people out. I always have like philanthropy at heart and just wanted to, you know, I suppose just help people. And like, I didn't know how to express that. So then I suppose when I kind of started doing my little stint in London and just traveling back and forth because it was like 35 minutes on train. That's when I kind of just found my footing in the creative scene and like was able to express myself in ways I never was able to express myself before, which was creatively. And then I think that's when my journey just kickstarted.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
in Ireland, before you left, what type of person were you? Like, who were you? Like, because at that time, socially,
I was the party boy,
okay.
partying kid. I just loved to party. I was a guy in my school who was organizing the buses to the clubs for like Leaving Cert, Junior Cert. I was the guy that was like organizing the nights out. And then also my cousin at the time was signed to a UK label, but it was like an indie jazz label, but he was living here. But he was kind of popping in Drogheda and in our hometown. And so he went touring around and I was just kind of always around that. So seeing that and soaking in and just getting inspired, you know, from your cousin, your best friend, like it just gives you a different drive. And then going into London and just being dropped in the middle of everything, just the madness, like just kind of give me a little bit more drive for the creative scene. I feel like, let me put it more into context. Going from someone who lives in the countryside to going to London and your first party, A$AP Rocky turns up. You're like, shit, I've only ever listened to you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And you're like, this is real life.
Sky's the limit. Like,
sky's the limit.
Especially because, like, obviously if you're going to Cambridge, you obviously innately you're smart, clearly. And if you're not smart, like 100%, if it's not mainly intelligence that got you there, it's hard work.
No, 100%.
So if those are the two things that you're working off, sky's the limit, and really in any sector that you get to. Where did the shift come for you? How many years did you spend in Cambridge before you were like, nah, like bunda, I want this life? It
was like 2, and then I think the driving moment was when we went to Coachella, right? So me and my best friend Zane went to Coachella 2018, and that's when you see everything. We were in LA for like 2 weeks, and we were seeing everyone who we like idolize, people who we listen to, people who we saw on Instagram timeline, people who thought we were generally lit. We partied with a lot of them, just because we have like friends there that are like super well connected. And then from that, I came back to the UK and I was like, nah, this is not for me.
Yeah.
No, one's,
And what's your relationship like with your family? Like, because obviously I'm assuming from an African family, from
Mhm.
what we would think of stereotypes, their
Yeah.
son going into Cambridge to study medicine is a big high
No, for sure.
versus choosing to go on a path less traveled or not traveled at all.
Yeah.
In most cases for you, what was the reaction from them?
Oh, my mom wasn't too happy. Like they weren't pleased. They kind of didn't want to speak to me for like 2-3 months, and we
Mhm.
kind of had our like family growing pains. But I feel like I was just like, look, trust me. I'm gonna do what's best for me, and I'm gonna do what makes me happy. And then obviously you have your struggles, and then after a while you kind of have conversations about it, and then it kind of gets into, okay, I see what you're doing now.
Mhm.
Like my mom had to first handedly see what I was doing and the impact I was having
Yeah.
for her to actually believe in it, like for her to come into some of my events that I was doing back in the day, to hearing the music I was plugging on the radio, to me getting her to go pick up newspapers for different artists I'd plugged onto the newspaper
Mhm.
and like hosted interviews for, et cetera, et cetera. Like she was able to tangibly see it, and I feel like tangibly seeing is believing for like a lot of African parents. So
100%.
yeah, it took
For
us.
I feel like for a lot of people, because I mean, right now, entertainment scene and online content creating is a lot more of a lucrative business than it was before.
100%.
At that time, there wasn't any evidence that
Mhm.
this could be done.
No,
And
100%.
especially coming from Ireland, right? If you're in the UK, sometimes, or even people who grew up in America,
Mhm.
they are a couple of generations ahead of us in the sense that they are around it. They even grew up around it. A lot of our
100%.
parents being first generation immigrants in Ireland, especially in the countryside, don't have that experience. Like they probably don't have access to anything in that sense, you know?
No, completely agree. And it was just like for my mum and her friends, and my mum, my dad, my aunties and whatnot, for them, the perspective was they had friends that were like, oh yeah, I'm going to make it as a musician, X, Y, and Z when they were growing up. Because I feel like my parents were super liberal. Like they've had a good time growing up. So they're obviously experiencing life and whatnot.
Yeah.
So they've had friends that have said, oh, I'm going to go this path. And it probably hasn't turned out the best. So they're like trying to choose the safest route for us to go to.
Yeah.
And I feel like all parents do that, you know, they just want the best
100%.
for us. But for me, I was just like, look, I'm a bit of a black sheep anyway. I was like,
Leaning.
yeah.
Yeah.
Meaning that's just like I just do what I want.
Yeah.
Like I just do what feels right, what I want. And I don't necessarily take the conventional route on anything.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And what? Sorry, I want to sick in the family right now. What like occupation do your parents have?
My mom is a nurse and my dad is in sales.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I can kind of see where the two different influences would have come from.
Yeah.
All right, take me to that first party. So essentially, partying was not something that was new for you. If anything, it was just a heightened experience that just gave you the motivation to keep wanting to be around parties.
Oh, 100%. It wasn't the party in itself. It was just the networking, the who you're around, who's doing what, what's doing what, and like just gaining your basic network in London, because it was like completely different and new place for me. Didn't know anybody apart from my cousin, so it was just like building all over again, you know, and building in the right direction where you kind of take your life. And I feel like, yeah, they were like the starting building blocks for me.
And in the sense of you building, what does that look like for somebody who's just come out of college or living in London, trying to like make a new path for yourself? Like, what were the steps that you took in that first period of your life?
I think the first period of my life, because it was the first time I was moving out on my own, first time I was going out of the country to like go somewhere new. So it was all very new and exciting. I feel like the first couple of steps was kind of just finding my balance. Once I found my balance, was finding my people, my tribe. After that, was finding out what I liked, what I wanted to do, and then
Who's your people? Who was your tribe at that time?
At that time, it was like Aaron Cootie, Zane, and then their friends, Daryl, Noni, and just like some other people.
So how would you describe your tribe? So these are names.
These are like people to me who are very close and they're like my family and extended family. So people who kind of took me under their wing, more or less. So that was my tribe at the time, and yeah.
And were they in the sector already?
Yeah, okay. They were very well embedded in the scene, and people who were just kind of like new. Like Noni is like the very OG plug who was connecting everyone to everyone. She'd done PR, she'd done so much different things within the London scene, and she kind of like took us in under her wings, went to her party. I remember being at one of our parties and Skepta was performing.
Crazy.
Like, imagine, this is 2015, 2016.
when he
Baby
was
boy Nath.
hot as well. Like,
Didn't know. I was just that fly on the wall, just there.
did you?
every
What was
party
your
just
relationship
going.
with UK music prior to that?
Prior to that, I was just a consumer. Like I
Like, were
didn't
you
know.
into UK music? Because there's
Oh,
some
no.
people in Ireland who grew up like I
Oh,
grew up on
stop.
grime, like Channel U, like
Yeah.
N-Dubs, all of that. That was me. So when
Okay.
you're saying these things, like
Yeah.
it hits me in like 15-year-old Nessa.
Yeah.
Do you get what I'm trying? It's not me seeing him now as Skepta selling art because he was bored. Like I was me, my brother, and my
there.
sister rapping.
From Amnesia.
Do you get me?
to-
Amnesia, bro, all over the
Back in the
house,
day.
trying to
Just
hide.
stop.
Anytime that came on, all over the house, bro, that got shut down on TV.
Remote.
Bro, there's certain words I couldn't even say at that
Stop.
time. Do you get me?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
what
yeah.
was that like for you? Because it's like, for me, I think that if I was exposed to that, I'd have lost it.
Nah, stop.
I'm gone.
See, for me,
I'm gone.
I was an MTV baby originally. So from like age 6, I'm watching MTV in front of the TV all day, every day, watching like all sorts. I think the first memorable music video I remember was like seeing Michael Jackson, black and white on the TV, and then seeing like Benny Benassi, Cinema, not Cinema, Satisfaction. Remember the girls?
Yeah, the gal on the TV
like,
back then was
crazy.
a bit uncensored.
So I was exposed to all of that and the American music and the rap and the Lil Wayne and this and that. So I was very much so within that mindset and that mentality of these are the guys I really love and like I idolize. And versus the UK, I'd meet like
did you not
anyone
appreciate
just,
the
like,
people that you were meeting at the time?
No, I just wasn't gassed. I didn't find them to be extremely big in my eyes. But although they're like huge and they're icons right now, like it just wasn't something that fazed me. I feel like being around that environment and meeting people and just not being phased, it just becomes natural to you.
Yeah.
Just like to meet anyone and not be like too gassed.
Yeah. You know? I feel like you have that kind of like delusional confidence about you. And I think at this stage, it's probably not delusional anymore because it's tried and tested.
Delusional is a big mad word for me, to use for me, because like I've lived this life. Like I've been there. You know what I mean? Like I'm that guy.
Okay, crazy.
Yeah,
I love
like
that.
to gas myself and toot myself up a bit too tough because like I'm still on my journey and like.
Did you say you don't want to gas yourself?
Yeah, I don't want to gas myself too much because like I've done bits, but also I haven't scratched the surface of what I want to do yet. So I'm just like, you have to stay humble. Like, you know what I mean?
I don't know if you know what humble means, but it's nice.
I'm humble.
I'm skipping.
I'm nice.
So at what point then did you want to translate this to Ireland? Because obviously you're not from there, but you're reaping the benefits of the scene and obviously your tribe that you've come into. Like at what point did it click that you wanted to bring it home, or was that forced upon you?
So when it clicked was in 2017. So 15, 16 was in uni. 17 dropped that, started doing an internship for Axel Argado. I don't know if you know the brand.
Yeah, you do, because we had this conversation the other day. So don't even act like you're bad like that. If you don't want to get me the runners, like
the brand stuff.
But yeah, calm.
Started doing events for them and a bit of marketing on the side and influencer marketing.
How do you just start doing events?
It's just your network, your people you know.
Anything can happen,
Yeah, anything can happen. Just in your network. A friend of mine, like, basically set me up and got the job. Done the internship, was doing it very well, and then that obviously progressed. But with Axel, I was doing a lot of events, and then we did Paris Fashion Week 2017, and we were running an event with Marsha Noir in Paris, with C-Safe from Place and Face, he was DJing. Mad Bad Thing from LA. There was just lots of people. Playboy Cardi pulled up, X, Y, and Z.
Crazy.
But where that moment happened was when I saw Tony Constant, Monjola, Red, Silent G, and a couple of other people, and George from Diamond Piece. They all came to that party, and like I happened to be at the door, and like I heard their Irish accent. I was like, "Raw, there's people like me out here."
Yeah. So
then I just was like, "Oh, boys, come in, give them all VIP wristbands, kind of chill that," and actually got to know each other. So that's like the first time I had like big interaction with people. And then myself and Monjola stayed friends from home. Yeah. So myself and Monjola stayed friends, and then we did an event summer of 2018, and that kind of just kickstarted me wanting to come back home more and more and actually do bits, because I saw there were people like me outside of Ireland doing bits, and they're all based in Dublin. So I was like, you know what, this seems like the right time to come back and just start building and trying to see what's happening, because there's obviously people who have similar interests. So we can actually make something. We can actually, make.
Did you feel like you were an anomaly at the time, like in the sense that you're a Black Irish person moving to London. It didn't seem like Dublin even scratched the surface for you in the sense
No.
of you didn't even think about that.
No.
Like, why was that for you? Were you like, did you feel like you were not connected to a community? Did you feel like there wasn't a community?
Yeah, there wasn't a community, number one. There wasn't that many people who had like similar interests at the time where I particularly grew up. So that's been my experience of Ireland, and then taking that to the UK where you're finding people who have similar interests.
Yeah.
They love the music, they love this, the fashion, it's different. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's just a different way of life. And then you coming back, you're like, yo, I want that. You know what I mean? So when I came back around the second time and I found people, I was like, you know what, we can actually build something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't mean to make it racial, right? But I almost kind of, and I'm somewhat projecting, I somewhat kind of resonate with your story in the sense of like growing up in Waterford. It wasn't till I left Ireland to go to America that I realized that I really like being around Black people. And when I came back to Ireland, I've been like saturated and living in Dublin, been saturated around being Black people. It has its pros and cons in the sense that I feel like growing up around like different cultures makes me a bit more of a well-rounded person.
No,
I can
100%.
almost walk into any room in Ireland and know how to navigate it.
No,
You get what I'm trying to
100%.
say? Where certain people living in Dublin, growing up in Dublin, being around people that look like them all the time, can't really break out of those structures and can't act accordingly in certain, like, people might call it code switching, whatever you want to call it.
Of course.
And then going to America and then actually being labeled Black in the sense where I was just Nessa, right? I was Nessa. I happened to be Black. I knew I was different to everybody else, but it wasn't really attributed to my color until I left and I came back. Was that an experience that you had? Because the names that you've mentioned coming back to Ireland are all Black. Is that a coincidence, or was that something that drew you to them?
I feel like that's something that definitely drew me to them. It's like people, representation for me is a key thing. It's like seeing people like you from somewhere you're from doing well in a place where you've grown up and stuff like that. You know, you kind of just want to go and be a part of that, you know. So I feel like representation is a big thing, but it's not always about race.
Yeah.
And it's not solely down to race, because a lot of the people we grew up and we hung around with were of different colors. You know what I mean? Super multicultural, but yeah, I think that just seeing representation was a very big thing for me. And it kind of sold me to come back and build a bit more, you know.
Because that's probably why you felt comfortable in the UK.
100%.
Right? You're
100%.
around a lot of people that, even
like,
without knowing, you
your
connect to
confidence
them.
level goes to a certain next level when you're in the UK, because there's people who've been there for since the 1960s, 1940s. There's established cultures, which I love about the UK compared to here. There's like the Jamaican culture, Indian culture, Turkish culture. Like it's very super multicultural, and you get to embrace that while you're there. Here, Dublin,
and you're
I feel like
encouraged to embrace that as well.
you're surrounded by it, you're immersed in it, you know?
I feel like sometimes here, like we see people, like, for example, I interviewed like Ghost the DJ, and he's had times where he spoke to me where it's like he's had more like slack off going back to Irish clubs in the sense of telling them what he's doing and almost kind of being looked upon weirdly because he has a diverse kind of background and surrounds himself with diverse people. Where in London, specifically London, and the UK itself is probably more like Ireland, but London itself is, you're almost like encouraged to be around other people. You can't get away from it.
No, 100%.
You know?
And like it just boosts, as a Black man going there from Ireland, it boosts your confidence so much.
Yeah.
Like for the first time, I was seen as like, you know,
Attractive.
a unicorn. You know what I'm saying? I'm very attractive to people. You sound different. Your mindset's different. You know what I mean? You're new into a different city. So that was a big bonus and plus for me. And I feel like it kind of made me feel relaxed to grow into my true self. You know what I mean?
Yeah. You start to find kind of branches of yourself that you didn't really know existed at the time.
At this stage, like I grew up around people who were driving tractors to school. People who were like, yo, why do you want to go and aspire to do this?
Yeah.
Just come and be an electrician with us, like come and do trade work. And I'm like, I'm so far out of that mindset because I've been watching and seeing possibilities from a very young age, seeing MTV, seeing this and that.
But also, this is not technically your home. Like, I think there's a privilege of being able to do that in the sense. I actually had this conversation with my friend recently where we spoke about a lot of our close friends growing up in secondary school all still live where we live. Very little of them have traveled outside, and whoever's traveled outside comes back in about 2 years, and they're so comfortable living where they're living. And she started to feel sorry for them, and I'm like, but we have to think bigger because we don't have the luxury of having all of our family around us. If all of your family were around you and everything looked the same and everything was a certain way and you found comfort in this stability, why would you aspire to be more if you didn't want to?
No, 100%.
Like
Comfort is a
we
killer of
have
growth.
to, exactly, but we have to aspire to more because this is not somewhere that we have deep roots. And like we have to almost build our own safety nets because a lot of us weren't born with them, you know?
No, I completely agree. No.
But yeah. Get me one.
Spitting.
Alright, so you come back to Ireland,
Yeah,
MJ, Red, all the man them. What's going through your head? How do you maneuver next?
So at that stage, I just want to kind of know people again, just network, meet everybody, and then create scene. What I've seen in like London, there's a sense of scene and culture and just like hanging out together and just becoming close knit. And like I'd follow people from Instagram and like having conversations with different people on Instagram. And then when I finally touched down, it was just like, let's get everybody to meet up and actually like, you all do similar things. Let's all hang out together. Let's see what happens when we all start hanging out and just start vibing together. And then did that successfully, brought everyone out to have lunch and Smoking Bones by Dame Lane. Used to be the best spot ever.
Big plug.
Big plug. No. Now it's only Nando's, but
was there? I'm skimming. Not a bad
but that
plug
was
still.
that was a very, very nice spot.
Yeah.
Brought everyone together. Everyone was like, great. We all actually kind of hang out together.
Yeah.
Like, why aren't we all hanging out together all the time?
Yeah.
Because you're stronger in numbers, you know, and then it starts to become something.
And I mean, everybody that you've named is actually doing pretty well for themselves. Like Red has Red House, like Manjola and Abby are doing big things together and on their own. Chamomile Club is even tonight, like. But it's kind of like that collectivity is something that's actually unusual. Like we hear a lot of crabs in the barrel mentality. We hear a lot of people being snake. We hear a lot of people not wanting to collaborate. Did you understand the importance of what was happening in that moment, or is it something that you look back on now?
It's something that like I understood the importance of. Something I had seen in the UK and seen how everyone kind of hangs out with each other.
Yeah.
Even if you do similar things, similar field, you hang out with each other. You build a sense of community, and you're stronger with numbers trying to push for a culture than you are on your own. And he's like, you're doing something different. Someone else is doing something different. She's doing something different. And like you're all going in the different directions. If you kind of like work together, you go further.
Bounce off each other. Yeah, unreal. So this is right now chronologically we're about 2017, 2018, which is essentially when you started Waverton Corp, then your creative agency.
So you did your research.
Come on, man.
I like that.
But yeah, so I'm actually so gassy. Oh my god. So at that stage, then, like, what was going through your head, and how did you do that? Was that something that you just knew how to kind of like take up, or was it a learned process for you?
I think it was very much so learned. Trial error, having no sort of experience with business, no experience with a lot of things in the creative scene, trying to find my feet, trying to find balance. The only thing I knew how to do was party. So what did I do? First thing, initiative, party. I was like, you know what? I'm really good at partying. I throw parties in London that are sick. I throw parties internationally that are sick. Why don't we throw a party here?
Yeah. And then what party did you throw?
Yeah. I threw the Wavement in Lily's, not Lily's Bordello. It was, you know, the Dean.
Yes.
They had a club downstairs called Ivy Gardens.
Oh yeah, they still not have that. Oh. Crazy.
It's gone. Yeah.
Oh,
no,
there's
Everleigh Gardens. Everleigh Gardens.
I was gonna say, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah,
there's
it's now Power Gym, but Everleigh Gardens.
Oh, I know exactly where that is. Yeah, unreal. And then
so that was like the first sort of event I did, and that was a success. Like a lot of people turned up. I still remember the door numbers. There was like 688. It was a student night. It was really good.
Yeah.
But that kind of gave me hope. I was like, look, people are actually embracing the culture that we're giving them. So let's just build and let's do something more and more. So then I went into music management. Then I was working with a couple of artists, just consulting and just like trying to develop some artists. And then progressively Waverton Corp turned into a PR agency after that, because I kind of had to step back after working with those artists and realize where are my strong suits, what am I really good at. I'm good at like connecting people, connecting great content to great outlets, like, and connecting the dots in between creatively, whether it's like with a marketing mindset, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
So then, yeah, that's when
Which
it kind
is
of
pretty
progressed.
much working amazingly for you.
Mm-hmm.
And it's mad because I knew some of what you did, but I didn't actually know in depth. Like,
Yeah.
I'm glad that I kind of like, I sometimes I wait before I interview people, and they
Yeah.
just like, you just gave me gems. I was like, yeah, you're coming on the couch.
No, so
When you told me that essentially the likes of Universal and Nando's and stuff like are your clients,
yeah.
as opposed to you working for them,
Uh-huh.
like I was like, I really respected you,
Uh-huh.
but I was like, yeah, cool.
Yeah.
Like not in a like condescending way, but I was like, that's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Thank
do you understand? Like that's unreal because
Uh-huh.
I think it's actually a negative mindset for us to assume that you were working for them.
Yeah. 100%.
Do you see what I'm trying to say? It's almost
Mhm.
like, oh, they're just hiring Nathan to do this and this, but when you tell me that they're your client and you're essentially, obviously it's working hand in hand, but
No,
a
100%.
client is hired, right?
Mhm.
Like it's one way essentially. Talk to me about that for you.
Oh, that has been like a journey of just like grinding, finding my feet, finding out what I'm good at, doing it very successfully, gaining the attention of people who are like, they see and really truly love what I do and wanting to build with me and seeing me in this sort of limelight that kind of wanting to build with me more or less
Yeah.
and wanting to get in touch with the culture. You know, I feel like those two like organizations are more like families rather than clients for me at this stage because I think it just took a lot of hard work, but also doing the correct things, being the visionary and just sort of building in the background and slowly but surely, like, it just happened and it just kind of fell into place and happened so organically at the perfect time too.
I don't think that there's been a better time for people seeking out culture. Like, I think sometimes, and I'm definitely not the best advocate when it comes to talking about racism and stuff because of my experience have been a certain way. But I definitely see things a bit more positive because of the people that I've been privileged and blessed to be around. So I'm always seeing people, not always, but a lot of times seeing people in Ireland actually reaching out for differences. Obviously, there's people out there that don't give a heck and don't want you here, and there's always going to be those
100%.
people. But I think we've never seen a time where people are so overtly trying to figure out who else is here with us, you know? And I think it's, if we're not smart about it and seeking out those people as well, we're always going to be in the mindset of, this person doesn't want me here. There's nothing here. There's like, I genuinely don't like the phrase that there's nothing in Dublin or whatever. Like, I do think it's slow. It's not where it
100%.
should be.
You have to push and you have to kind of look for opportunity and you have to show people why they should invest in you and why they should care about you, you know, what you're doing, your community, your culture, where it's going. You know, there may be something that's trending right now and you're like, oh, you should support this, but is it going to stand the test of time? I feel like people and brands and corporations, they kind of want to see something that's going to stand through the test of time. So if they're investing it, make sure it's going to be a worthy investment, you know?
I think without people like you on the team, I don't think they know what in our culture will stand the test of time. Like, there's certain artists that have been given backing over the years and they were amazing at the time, but it's because they were probably like the lowest hanging fruit. Like, they were so easily accessible. Not that they're not talented or whatever, but the longevity was never there. But to them, they're not part of our culture. They don't know that. So it's back to representation, having the right people in the room to represent this thing. If you're not from a culture, you don't know the streets. Like, do you know what I mean?
No, I hear that. But I think they do a very good job in trying to know about the streets. But see, everyone who gets an opportunity, sometimes it's their chance to get an opportunity. And like, let's say Longitude, let's say there comes a time where you peaked in the music scene in Ireland when they're like, okay, it's your turn. You're doing Longitude this year. You're doing Longitude this year. And I feel like right after that, it's a very good moment. It's a peak moment. And what I feel like a lot of Irish musicians fail to do is, once you have something, even I fail to do it at times, once you have a very big high, maintaining that and going up the next level, you know what I mean?
I think
you may have a very big high, and then after that, it's like, raw, what else can I do? I've hit the pinnacle.
Exactly.
You know, and you start to backslide and you're like, you know.
I think that, like, what I was going to say is that I think that how is still a question in Ireland. I don't think that I think it's two things. I think it's the artist and I think it's the industry, right?
Mm.
A lot of the times when I speak about the Irish scene and when a lot of us speak about the Irish scene, really and truly we're talking about the black urban hip hop scene. Like, because obviously there's other parts of the Irish music scene that are well established, flourishing without any of our help, right? But when it comes to our culture and what we're doing, like there's equally not resources for artists, but also everybody else is kind of finding it out right now. Do you know what I mean? Where it's kind of, okay, I've done longitude, like main stage or whatever. What's next? Like, what would your advice be to somebody who's in Ireland, or how are you working with some of your artists right now to find the next peak, not to plateau, not to decline, but to go to the next step?
I think to go to the next step, you just have to stay consistent and just like work hard. And like anyone who I'm working with, something I always say, like just keep going harder. And it's just like, you've done that. That's a huge milestone. Keep going. You know what I mean?
Keep going. How?
Keep going.
What does that
Just
look like
keep
objectively?
looking for the next thing. I feel like plan your 6 months. If longitude's a milestone along those 6 months, plan afterwards. What are we doing after? You know, I feel like planning ahead is the key for success, because if you don't plan, you plan to fail.
Plan to fail, yeah. Yup.
So,
Words. But what do you think about the
I'll grab
phrase?
another beer.
Yeah, go on. Do you have it?
Oh no, it's over there.
This
Do you
guy's a
mind?
diva.
Yeah, man. I need to get my throat a little bit.
Say throw it.
Yeah. Are you enjoying your beer? Little Bud Light break. I mean, Corona Light break.
This is little juicy juice. This is the most diva day I've had.
I'm so sorry. But yeah, I appreciate this. Thank you.
Nah, you're actually ridiculous. Do you know what? Leave that in. I'm just kidding. Don't actually kill me. But I was gonna ask you next, like, what is your thoughts on the opinion that we need to leave Ireland to blow, or we need to leave Ireland to make something of ourselves in the sense of the creative and music scene?
I feel like, that's a very good question. More or less, the Irish consumer has like a sheep. There's sort of like an element of sheep mentality in that. That when other markets like the UK, US, France, Germany, like an Irish person, they'll tend to just embrace them because it's like, oh my God, you're doing so well internationally. Let's embrace you. But when we're here, I feel like there's a lack of connectivity. If you're in Dublin, you stay in Dublin. You don't go to Galway, Limerick, Cork to connect, to go and meet other people. And I feel like that's kind of a little bit of a downfall. But when you go to other places, like everybody's going to embrace you and they're going to celebrate you. And that's how everyone's going to kind of know about you. And then, you know, you're embraced here.
And then what about the people who have been embraced and find that they still have to come back here? Like, how do they navigate that? Because we've had some successful artists who are like, okay, cool, I can only blow outside of Ireland, go outside of Ireland, blow, and they're pretty much like any of us walking down the street. Like, what do you feel about that? Like, how do you find like they can navigate?
That's a good question.
They're all good questions, bro.
Yeah. I feel like with that one, everybody has their own journey. I feel like everyone has to go through their own things to, you know, find out where the end goal is.
Yeah.
No two journeys are the same. So I couldn't really comment on that because I haven't been there.
Yeah.
But for someone who's gone and they've coming back and trying to embrace home, it's always good. Like home's always, you know, got you.
There.
But like, yeah, I feel like everyone's journeys are different. Sorry to be so PC about that one, but yeah.
I'm screaming. No, it's fine. But do you feel like being so close to the UK is actually a detriment to people in Ireland?
Oh, no. It's even better because we can bridge and we can grow with the UK. But people don't collaborate, and that's our biggest downfall as Irish people. We don't collaborate, and I don't think we particularly like seeing other people do well.
Why is
either.
that?
I don't know, because we don't really celebrate each other as much as we should do. We see great things happening, and we just kind of stay quiet and mute about it. And that's something that like kind of pisses me off about this place a little bit. Yeah.
But in the sense of what I mean, that do you feel like being so close to the UK is kind of detrimental? I think it's, for me, I find not about the actual actions, but more about the perspective. I think that being so close to the UK right now is giving people a false narrative of where they should be musically. In the sense of what we've talked about, the industry. The industry is not the UK, and I think people, like, I don't know if everybody, like, I followed the UK scene. So I can, like, when I was 15, I know what the artists that we're seeing right now, we're going through. And I've listened to conversations. I was listening to One Extra back in the day, like Tim Westwood when he was there. Do you get me? So it's like a lot of the conversations that I hear artists and creatives having have been had in the UK.
Yeah.
But people are trying to skip that phase and be where the UK is right now.
Yeah, I get you.
Do you get what I'm trying to say?
I get what you're trying to say.
Obviously, having access to the UK is amazing.
But I feel like what a lot of people need to remember is you can't go from step 3 to step 10 and be like, yo, I'm a superstar already. You have to kind of go through the ranks and go through each step to kind of get where, you know, you're heading, and like people in the UK have gone and stuff like that. And just like, there's some people that do very successfully and you can see, but also what you have to realize is this place is so small. Like we have the same population size of Manchester.
Crazy.
So getting on a national broadcaster here is something that's very achievable, something that's very possible if your music's great.
Yeah.
Versus somewhere in America. Do you know how hard it is to get on like a national broadcaster, on the national airwaves? So we achieve a lot quicker than people other places. So we kind of don't really, we achieve a lot super quickly. So you that sort of sense of achievement and gratitude kind of fades, and you're like,
we don't really understand the magnitude of what certain things like let's talk about Cello being number 8. Like obviously
first drill act. Number 8. Like,
why? So explain why the clarity.
That's a big thing. Like drill is sub-genre of hip hop.
Yeah.
Like, that's never happened before.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? And this drill is cruddy. It's from like Chicago, passed on to the UK, but it's really being embraced by the UK lately. Yeah. So it's just like something like that to come into Ireland where it's like, it's mostly pop, folk music that's like charting. You know what I mean? Yeah. Rock music. And then for something like that, and something that's the story even behind it, and then the way the music's narrated, is something that we have, and it's something that's like from a black person as well, that's doing something of black culture. To do that in Irish history, that's history. You know what I mean?
That's crazy.
And we're part of that. That's why we should be so proud of moments like that, you know?
But like, even I saw something recently, it's like when Rosa Parks sat at the back of the bus, or sat at the front of the bus.
The
like,
back.
Is it the back?
Yeah.
Bro, man don't care about. No, I'm joking. When she sat at the back of the bus, do we really think that she was doing it for us?
Bro.
She was tired, bro.
Bro.
Do you get what I'm trying to say? She didn't care about us. She didn't care about the Civil War, all of that.
But she must be going through the motions when they said move and you're not moving. Have you ever been like pissed off and you're just like,
exactly.
And you're just like, you're stubborn. You're like,
exactly.
Whatever you do, I'm not changing my mind about this. Like I feel like that's what she had, and she had resilience. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Because look, back in those days, it was cruel, it was tough.
Bro,
she was a woman. You know what I mean?
Apart from all of that, like big ups her in that. And I'm not trying to take like minimize her story and stuff, but I wasn't trying to go into the depth of it, right?
Yeah.
But my main point is that she didn't know she was living in history until afterwards.
Yeah.
She was doing that for herself. I feel like because of the nature of like virality, is that a word? We are trying to construct history all the time. And I think that negates it, right? Sometimes the most amazing things come from authenticity, right? And something like Cello's is clear history, right? Where there's other things that we won't know our history for another while. But it's like, regardless of that, we're very slow to acknowledge our achievements. And I think it's something that, I don't know if it's a human thing, I don't know if it's a Black Irish thing, whatever, but it is definitely more of an observation that we've seen in the Irish scene right now. Big ups to you, and I would like to say a thank you on cam for asking me to do the 0207 interviews. I like to give people their flowers like in front of people. I know we've had this conversation and stuff like that, but I think that is also a night where, whether you were there or not, there's a feeling about something changing about that night. Talk me through that for you. Like, how do you feel after that? What were you feeling during it?
That was the craziest experience of my life. I feel like probably the best event that's happened. No, not probably. The best event that's happened this year. Put my money where my mouth is. I think it was phenomenal. What it meant for the culture, what it meant for the scene, what it meant for just the urban, community, what it meant for the people, the future artists, and just just in general, just representation,
Yeah.
recognition. It was such a big thing, you know.
Yeah. And it was so big that some of your friends didn't get in.
Yeah,
Like,
which is just the downside of working with big corporations.
like, how do you feel after that, where it's you're on a high, you think that you smashed it, you're getting calls, and then after certain people also feeling upset about how things were run, like, how do you react to that? Like, how do you bounce back from that?
I feel like it's a very tough one at the time, and it's like, look, not everything's going to be perfect. The time is done, and if I could go back, I'd try to change a few things, but it went how it went. I feel like everything happens for a reason, but yeah, I feel like there's nothing I would change about it, because like everything happens for a reason.
Yeah.
There's something to be learned from it. You know?
Do you feel like building exclusivity is important for the scene?
Oh, 100%.
Why?
100%. There's air of exclusivity is just like, if there's no exclusivity about something, you're not going to want to go or want to be there. So it's like, when you do, it basically plays on the bit of standard. I feel like exclusivity and standards go kind of like hand in hand, in the sense of something's done to a super high standard. I don't feel like everyone should be should have access to it. Yeah. In a sense, but of like partying and whatnot. Yeah. But other things like everyone should have access to. But yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, it's tough kind of seeing where you're dealing with people where a lot of things that we're dealing with right now are actually just opinions, right? When we're talking about best rappers, best this, best that, it's pretty much more subjective than it is objective. So when 100%. People have their feelings about feeling like they should be in something, or feel like
that, like, obviously I understand that, and it's like everyone feels entitled to certain things, and like certain things you can't change, and there's certain things go, and I feel like you kind of have to just embrace it, be a mature adult about it, and kind of move on. If you weren't invited to it, it is what it is, you move on. You know what I mean? But I feel like that entitlement, I feel like it shouldn't exist, but also we should praise people as, you know, they get to certain levels and stuff like that.
Crazy. Cool.
Being very PC, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was like, that's not what you were saying the other day. But
that was privately.
That's okay. I respect that, and that's my duty of care to my guests, I guess. But essentially, I remember you mentioned Clint the other day, and recently in the last couple of weeks, he's been kind of having some Twitter wars, and it was something that actually was perfect that it came up this week, because I do want to. Not him specifically, but I do want to ask your opinion as somebody who's seen money and is working with culture, right? And how they mix together. Like, what are your thoughts on that? First of all, are you aware of? Did you see what happened between him and Maurice on?
Yeah, from Man of the Boy. I was on top of it. Watching every tweet. Yo,
so I had notifications on.
It was like Sky Sports.
Crazy.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts on that?
I feel like, yes, I know if you're doing stuff for the culture, sometimes it's not great to be money driven, but I feel like if you spend so long doing it, there can be no money in it. But yeah, it was a very back and forth argument, but I think I see both sides of it. Yeah. In the sense of, you definitely need the culture to move forward, but also you do need the money to move forward. But it's just then it comes to a crossroads where, are you being self-serving or are you serving the culture? Yeah.
And what I'm learning,
for the culture.
And what I'm learning is that I'm definitely someone who would say I'm more for the culture than money driven. It's just not my thing. Money is just not, it's just not how I'm wired. I wish it was, because I'm all cost of living crisis, man. But I do find that there are a lot of negatives when it comes to being like culture driven and wanting that as a passion. But at the same time, when you're people driven, you have to care about the people that you're working with. 100%. And what I feel like we're finding right now is that people outside of the culture are creating their own culture and calling it the culture. Yeah. And I think that's very detrimental to the people that are actually meant to be represented. 100%. And I feel like that's what those two kind of do a bit differently, in the sense where I feel like Clint is in the streets. Do you get me? Like, and he's getting money from it. We don't know. Obviously, he's getting endorsements from other places, but it's almost kind of like, oh, your man was saying, Reese was saying, oh, if you sold them for 99 pence, like, almost like you didn't make money, but he's
No,
obviously making
100%.
money somewhere else where he can afford to do that.
100%. It's like giving back to the community and just making the culture realize,
Mhm.
you know, you're here for them and supporting them. You know, I feel like you always have to give back, regardless of what you do.
Yeah.
Always. Like, they're the people that supported you from the get-go, and they helped raise you to a certain level. You can't forget about them, you know? Yeah.
And but should we expect people who get to a certain level to care about the culture?
100%. I feel like the culture is what sustained you getting popular in the first place. Why do you no longer care about it? You know what I mean?
Is it always a linear trajectory? Is it always the one way?
No. I feel like there's multiple ways to do everything. Yeah.
Because I feel like also certain people, do I want to bring this guy's name up?
Go on, say it. Go on, say it.
I feel like, don't kill me. I feel like Ye is somebody who influenced the culture as well as being supported by the culture.
Yeah.
So in that sense where people are demanding a certain level of, I think the responsibility is always there.
Yeah.
The responsibility is always there to care for people that look up to you regardless, right? But the expectation is different, right? Where somebody like Kanye, people are expecting him to think a certain way, to feel a certain way, to act a certain way. Should we expect that from someone who doesn't live in the same atmosphere as us?
I don't know. Next question.
I'm
I'm not talking about
Why?
Kanye. Just because it's too political. It's too touchy.
Why is it political?
Bro, do you see what's going on at the moment with
Okay,
him?
but like I hear that he's losing brands, but that's because of
it's not even brands, people's emotions he's hurting.
100%.
Two things I don't like talk about: politics and religion. And like what he's done is being like it's being in the middle of both. You know what I mean? And it's just like it's hella conflict.
Okay, so take away Kanye's name from what I'm saying at all. So Kanye was more of an example. Exactly. I could have used a different name, but Clint is who's the name right now, right? We can bring that into music as well, where we have underground artists who have the streets, but really and truly they're not making that much money, right? And even in certain ways in the UK, for example, who would I compare that to? Maybe Giggs and Stormzy a little bit, where people have different expectations from both of them, right? Stormzy, for example, if anything happened, we wouldn't really go to Stormzy and be like, oh, what's Stormzy think about this? Do you get me? But because of the way Giggs has solidified the game and done things a certain way, if there was something that was pertinent to like the black UK community, we would want to know what he says. But my question is less about the people and more about the expectation. Do you feel like as humans, once people have reached a certain level, we should expect this level of responsibility from them?
Not necessarily. Not everyone's a public figure. Not everyone's a public spokesman, you know? Some people, just because you've done what you've done doesn't mean you have to be the spokesperson for everyone, you know? You don't have to advocate for, you know, people, but that responsibility, just because they're great at the craft doesn't mean they're the person that's about to lead us into the next person. They probably
never cared about us.
Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I'm not someone who goes out in public and speaks about, you know, matters that are going on and topics that are going on. I find myself to be quite like a private person, and I don't toot my own horn. I don't speak much about what I'm doing, but I get the, you know, work done and whatnot. So yeah, I feel like not everyone has to have that responsibility. And even though you've done so much for the culture and you've pushed, it doesn't mean you have to be the spokesperson. There will be people that will go out and do it, and like you can support in your own way, of course. But
because I feel like that's something that we may be seeing quite soon in the Irish community, where familiarity breeds like disrespect, right? Where we're so close to someone where we expect that at every moment of waking breath, they need to mention where they're from, or they need to remember us, or they need to remember who did this and what, and that's almost an entitlement from us because we're so close to them, you know, where there's probably other people in Ireland that have done massive great things and you don't give a heck because they're not part of our community. But I mean, it's a way of feeling pride maybe to them, like pride in a good way, in the sense that we're proud of them for doing that, but we almost want to feel seen and remembered by them, you know. But I guess it's just a human thing. But yeah, what's next for you?
Next steps. I feel like I want to build a little bit more, but also I feel like my time in Ireland is kind of like
running up.
I'm getting to that stage where I'm feeling a bit too complacent. I feel like I need a fresh perspective on life and just growth and everything again. Whether it's moving out, traveling more, I just need like a new, fresh perspective. You know when you've been in love with,
I'm scared.
can't say, you've been in love with something, something
Can't
for
relate.
a bit too long.
Yeah.
And then the relationship kind of gets stale. I feel like I'm getting to that stale phase where it needs to be a new spark, you know? I feel like when
Same
I first
relationship
came here,
though, or new relationship?
I feel like it could be the same, it could be something new. I feel like when I came here, there was a certain boldness about like being Irish and being an Irish musician that was here. And like there was a certain drive about it. I feel like everyone's gone quiet, everyone's gone shy. No one's dropped this year. No one's done nothing. I feel like music's what drives me, culture's what drives me. We see a lot of people do something like an event and then everyone wants to do an event. But if it goes quiet, everyone goes quiet. Like why don't we stay
There's
consistent?
no like a
Why
lot
don't
of
we
leaders.
not
But I do find that there's
collectively.
more kind of creative like events. I do think music is kind of taken the back seat. I think it's definitely more like creatives now than it is like creatives like in the broader sense than it is just musicians, which I think is also good. But like you said, it's kind of like we find this one thing and then everybody wants to kind of just
everyone
be
wants
that
to do
thing.
it, everyone wants to replicate it, everyone wants to do something like lockdown for one, studios, everyone wanted to build a studio, everyone was doing something. You know what I mean? And then it came events, everyone wanted to do an event. It's like we're all competing for the same thing, but we're all not in competition with each other. We all build successfully and we're speaking to each other, we're helping, we're collaborating. I can have my event this week, you can have yours next week, he can have his, you can have hers, and then so on and so forth. And it's a continuous thing, it's ecosystem, everyone's passing around. And I feel like we're so disconnected. I think the next thing for me to do is probably behind the scenes try to connect everyone and just try to get that connection going, because we're not connected to people in Limerick and people in Galway and people like in Belfast, but we're all doing something that's super similar. And if we all come together, we're killing it. Like
crazy.
We're actually doing stuff and we're pushing the culture and the scene and the boundaries forward, you know?
We actually had a conversation about that after the last recording session, in the sense where a lot of us that kind of work on Nesser Pod and stuff aren't originally from Dublin. So we have, and it's no knock to people who are from Dublin, but it's the same with any capital place, right? All you think about is here, right? And obviously there are great things about here, but your mind is not going to be expanded if you're always around the same people, always around the same type of things.
No, 100%. It's been very myopic. Like you're very much so pigeonholing yourself into this is the spot. This is, although it is the capital and a lot of eyes are on here, you need to do better to build across everywhere. You know, I feel like you can't just expect to like succeed from one destination.
Especially when that destination isn't even fully built yet.
You know? Yeah, more to come.
Yeah, love that. I'll be watching. Lads, it's been Nathan, Lord Waverton.
Thank you.
Thanks for finally coming.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course.
Very nice conversation.
This is actually I'm actually proud of you for not kind of, I thought you were going to be on your, you don't have the answers, Sway.
No, I'm very chill.
All right, guys, if you enjoyed the conversation, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Let us know your thoughts in the comment section also. Bow.
Bye-bye.